pole shifts. I don't know if you know this, but our Earth has had 4 pole shifts in the past, and we're potentially going to have a 5th, okay? And a pole shift, and the reason why they did this particular thing with the pyramids is because if you look at Antarctica, and you go to Antarctica and you look at the discoveries there, they discover animals there, right? These animals are frozen in time, perfectly preserved. When they open the stomach, what do they find in the stomach? Undigested food. Why is it undigested? Flash frozen. Flash frozen. So what does that tell you? Antarctica moves into that position. So as tectonic plates bump against each other, sometimes you have a subduction plate where one plate goes under. Sometimes you have a subduction plate that goes above, and you have one that goes under. So basically, as these plates bump into each other, and then you have a gravitational field that causes a tug on our planet, which, like our brown dwarf neighbor that we just discovered out there in our solar system, when it passes around our sun, and adds a little bit more gravitational shift to our planet and tugs and pulls, and one plate shifts and drops. Now you have an entire continent that drops into an area that's freezing cold, and the animals and everything in their stomachs becomes flash frozen. Okay? This happened before on this planet. And if you look at the volcanic rock on this planet, you begin to realize that there's magnetism in the rock that show that the North Pole was facing south. Every 27,000 years, we have a magnetic pole shift as well. A magnetic flip is going to happen sometime within the next few hundred years to a few thousand years. It's just part of the geology of this planet. It's something that happens. It's part of natural nature. But it happens typically around this 4,200-year cycle when this sun, this other brown dwarf star, passes by our sun, which is the sun that the ancients knew about. It's not going to crash into our planet or anything like that, but you have to understand, this brown dwarf star has the same exact mass as our yellow star, but it's about 4 or 5 times smaller.
Earth, and the Earth is separating. We're going to be going into a totally different dimension by raising the frequencies and vibrations of the Earth. It will shift into a new dimension. And this is the greatest show on Earth because they said all the beings and all the universes are watching, because this has never happened to in any universe anywhere, that an entire planet will shift into a new dimension. And when this happens, it's like 2 Earths, as though they split. The old Earth is left behind with all the negativity and all the chaos, and the new Earth separates, and it will be totally new and beautiful. Now, those who have raised the vibrations and frequencies of their bodies will shift into the new Earth.
Wait, are you suggesting that the Garden of Eden, the one from the Bible, could actually be at the North Pole? That's not exactly where I imagined it would be.
I know it sounds wild, but hear me out. The book of Genesis describes a river flowing from Eden that splits into 4 branches: Pishon, Gihon, Tigris, and Euphrates. We only know the exact locations of 2 of those rivers today, so most people think Eden must have been somewhere near the Middle East.
Yeah, that's what I always thought. So where does the North Pole come into this?
Okay, here's where it gets interesting. What if the great flood mentioned in the Bible changed everything? I mean, if a flood of that scale happened, it could have shifted entire continents, right? That means what we think of as Eden's location could be totally different now.
You're saying the landscape changed so much that Eden could have ended up at the North Pole?
Exactly. And here's something you probably don't know. There are old maps from the 15th and 16th centuries made by a guy named Mercator that show the North Pole with 4 major rivers, just like the ones described in the Bible. But these maps have mysteriously vanished from records. Poof, gone. It's like they never existed, except there are a few references that survived. Some people believe these maps show the true location of the Garden of Eden at the North Pole, and that the government might have erased them from history to keep it a secret.
That's some serious conspiracy stuff, but why would they do that?
Who knows? Maybe they didn't want people finding out the truth, or maybe it's something even crazier. But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Could the Garden of Eden really be hidden away at the North Pole? This is just a theory, not a fact.
Why is the magnetic North Pole moving towards Russia? The magnetic North Pole is moving in a way never seen before by scientists. In the northern hemisphere, compass needles point towards the magnetic North Pole, the location of which changes due to the shifting contours of the Earth's magnetic field. It is distinct from the geographic North Pole, or true north, which stays fixed at the spot where all lines of longitude converge. For centuries, the magnetic pole meandered close to the coast of northern Canada. In the 1990s, it drifted into the Arctic Ocean. The movement of the pole is driven by unpredictable changes in the churning of the molten iron that makes up most of the Earth's outer core. When Sir James Clark Ross, a Royal Navy officer and paleoexplorer, made his first measurements at the site of the pole in 1831, he relied in part on the magnetic needle, which pointed directly towards the Earth. These days, the British Geological Survey uses a network of ground stations and satellites to map the field in different locations. This data gives a sense of how the molten core is behaving. A group led by Professor Phil Livermore of the University of Leeds has proposed an explanation for what he calls the pole's odd recent behaviour. He suggests it's been caught in a kind of tug of war between two competing areas of magnetic force, one under Canada and the other under Siberia. For more on this story, visit thetimes.com.
If what we're seeing right now with the poles shifting is true, scientists starting to talk about how North Pole has shifted somewhere over Russia, moving towards Siberia. Let's say this continues and we have 3 miles of ice melting, making the water in the entire world go up 40 meters, which is 120 feet. We're going to be losing some of our shores across the world. Manhattan's gone. But what would happen is, while this is going on, we would be seeing on Antarctica a reveal of a very ancient past. It would reveal to us many, many things that we're not even aware of down there, potentially.
Did you know the Earth's magnetic North Pole is shifting? Scientists have been tracking the movement of the magnetic North Pole, and it seems to be moving closer to Russia, but they can't explain why that is. Let's be clear, the geographic North Pole is different from the magnetic North Pole. The magnetic North Pole is where Earth's magnetic field lines meet. It's also the north direction a compass would point to. Now, the magnetic field shields us from harmful solar winds and radiation, and without it, we wouldn't be able to live here on Earth. Take a look at how the magnetic North Pole has shifted so far. It's always in motion since it isn't stable in strength or direction, but it's been dramatically speeding up in recent years, then rapidly slowed. And scientists say a pole reversal is possible, meaning the magnetic North Pole and South Pole would flip, which they estimate happens once every million years. A flip could disrupt radio communications and navigation systems as we know it, and it could also affect animal migration patterns. The last big flip was around 750 to 780,000 years ago, and scientists aren't sure when it could happen again. But for now, this movement of the magnetic North Pole may cause major airlines and militaries in NATO to upgrade their navigation.
Okay, so now you're telling me that one of the things we're being told is that one of the reasons all the plane crashes have been happening is because Earth's North Pole, the same North Pole that's been there since I've been born, I've been alive, has now shifted and has made its way towards Siberia. And if that isn't interesting enough, Siberia, 13 different viruses have been dug up that's been under the ice for a very, very long time. But one of those in particularly is causing a little bit of concern within the scientific community because it's categorized as the zombie virus. Now, I don't know what in The Last of Us is happening around us, but that seems a little bit alarming. So yeah, what I've learned in the news today is that the reason the plane crashes are happening is because the North Pole has changed. Now, I don't know how Santa feels about that. I don't know how I feel about that. But have you heard this? Have you not heard this? Let's have this conversation today because I feel like there's a lot to be unearthed here. Unearthed, pun intended. But drop it in the comments. And once again, anything we talk about is for education, learning, conversation, and entertainment purposes only. But
Good morning, folks. Welcome, observers. This is how I've been watching the sun for 2 days. Reverse brightness, looking for flare indicators. We're going to go over space weather, seismic activity, a new space mission, and the top story, once again, tying Earth rotation speed to Earth's magnetic pole shift. We're starting with the last 24 hours on our star, 195 angstroms from GOES. Very quiet day. Was worried about those polar orbiting astronauts, but the sun has gone quiet. Their spaceflight ends tomorrow, so only about one more day of worrying about the massive sunspot on the south, but it was actually something else about the sunspots that caught my eye. Veterans, you know sunspot magnetism flips north versus south, blue positivity leading on the north, red negative leading on the south, except for that one top right active region in the southernmost trio. Looks like that one is blue leading, red trailing to the left, a reversed sunspot. The solar pole flip is past the halfway point, meaning solar maximum only has about 6 to 18 months left. We are expecting nominal solar wind for several days with little other than the minor coronal holes here to amplify the stream. The sector boundary magnetic flip with the solar wind should occur within about 36 to 48 hours, but it should be minor. Top quake of the last day continues the days-long uptick of magnitude 6 or higher events, this one safely offshore Japan. But a couple weeks ago we got the 7.7 striking Myanmar. It dropped buildings over 1,000 kilometers away and has killed nearly 3,000 people. They say it was a very rare super shear event. In these, the ground motion breaks so dramatically that the energy waves outpace the seismic waves, which caused the extreme devastation we saw in this event. Sadly for them, most of the super shear faults are in this part of the world. Congratulations to the Spherex team on their first light. The initial images from what I think will be as meaningful as James Webb is now live and scoping the heavens. Been waiting a couple years for that. Very excited to see what they can give us. And last but not least, folks, we've covered the few dozen papers on this before. Here it is again, confirming on top of confirmations. The Earth's rotation speed changes with the long-term geomagnetic secular variation. So I'll go ahead and say this again. When they want to tell you that climate change is slowing down Earth's rotation speed, every aspect of that is a lie. We're speeding up. The days grow shorter, which is exactly what happens when the magnetic field is going into its shift phase, like right now. Low field strength, lower length of day, meaning faster speed, and Earth is racing at record spin the last 4 years as we descend into this magnetic pole shift. Folks, we're ready to kick off the heavy schedule of events at Observer Ranch. Quail Day is less than 2 weeks away, and then it's a mad dash through data and cycles and special guests and prepping classes and overall disaster readiness. Spots for the grand opening dinners with Dr. Robitaille and myself are filling fast, in addition to nearby hotels. Folks, we've got a lot of ways for you to stay at the ranch. Head to observerranch.com for the event list, booking details, and more. We greatly appreciate your support. We'll do this all again tomorrow. Right here, but right now it's 5 a.m. in the new Valley of the Sun. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.